of these men mean more to you in your
This
life?
one, Jesus.
Where you from?
I'm from Nigeria.
He's from Nigeria too.
Yeah.
What if I was to tell you that this is not real?
It's real.
He sacrificed his life for our children. He is the reason why you are able to come over here today. He fought for you to come over here.
It is this one that you are able.
Redfield?
It's because of Jesus. That's why we're able
So
to.
it's not because of Malcolm X. Malcolm X is the one that fought for you to have the rights that you have.
Is the one, Jesus Christ is the one that made it possible for us to be.
So let me ask you this. You see this Jesus, right? Is this image more important than your own mother, than your father?
The image is nothing.
Right, but no, listen to me. Is Jesus more important to you than your own mother and father?
Jesus Christ is more important to me than myself.
Oh.
You know the reason? He told me to love myself as others.
So Jesus told you to love yourself?
Yes.
Your mother didn't tell you to love yourself?
He did.
So the problem here is that we Africans, we lack a basic knowledge of history. We don't know these things. So when the interviewer posed that question, even without hearing what the Nigerian brother is going to answer, I already know and I'm aware. This is because we don't know. The interviewer should have even asked if he knew who those black men were. Now, he should have started with that particular basic question. Now, I never heard of Malcolm X and I never heard of Marcus Garvey until my third year in the university. And the only reason why I heard about these people were because of my lecturer, Professor Nana Arukwe. If not because of him, I would have never heard of these Pan-Africanists. And it is that bad. Now, not just did my professor back in the school helped us to, get in touch with this aspect of our history, but he also recommended materials that made me and some other people to basically broaden our horizon. That was when I learned about Isis, I learned about Osiris, I learned about, the proliferation and the adulteration of, the ancient Kemet, the ancient Kemetan history. And basically how the Bible basically came about. Because prior to my third year in UNN, I never have heard of anything like that. So during those periods, it basically made me to read more, basically helped me to think differently from the Nigerian brother. So nonetheless, let's look at some of the contributions of Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. Because when the interviewer was really surprised with the response and he had to, ask again, what was the contribution of Jesus Christ to Africans? And let's now compare this contribution to people like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. Let's look at Malcolm X. No, Malcolm X basically advocated for black pride and our self-defense, because during those times, these were times where Africans could be lynched. We didn't really have basic human rights. African Americans. Now, Malcolm X emphasized the importance of black pride and self-defense, self-determination. He believed that African Americans need to have a sense of self-respect and dignity, and they should not allow themselves to be mistreated or to be oppressed. Now, the second contribution, I wrote down 3. Now, he fought against racism and segregation. Now, if you're a good student of history, you will know that once upon a time in history, where a black person and a white person cannot sit in the same vehicle, cannot sit in the same car, cannot even sit in the same classroom or use the same bathroom. Segregation laws entailed that the white man and a black person has nothing in common and should not be seen together in a public space. Now, back in those days, when a white person or a black person goes into a white-only space, the black person is more likely to be arrested, incarcerated, and basically jailed for just the crime of being in the same geographical location or the same environment with a white person. So these were what segregation laws entailed. Now, Malcolm X fought against racism, like extreme racism, because what's basically, we've evolved. Generally, we've evolved. So the racism of yesterday is no longer the racism of today, although we still suffer from institutionalized racism. Our black brothers over there, we still get them, showing us clips of, them being, white people, or basically even fellow black Africans are even being some kind of racist towards Nigerian Africans or other Africans from other part of the country. So these are the roots. And people like Malcolm X fought against racism and fought against, segregation laws. Now, Malcolm X was prominent. He was a prominent leader in the fight against racism and segregation. He worked to promote the idea that the African American were equal to the white Americans, and they also deserve to be treated as such. Now, the third contribution was that Malcolm X advocated for black entrepreneurship and also economic empowerment. This is because he believed that economic independence was a critical component to black liberation. He encouraged African Americans to start businesses and support their own community. Now, if you have the economic power, you have the mandate to dictate what happens to other people. Once you have the economic power. Now, to basically be at the same pedestal with our white counterparts, we black Africans also need to have freedom. And by having that economic freedom, we would have to first of all have black entrepreneurs. We have to have black businesses. So this was what Malcolm X contributed. So when he asked our black Nigerian brother, and I asked him between Jesus Christ and between Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey, who did more for the black race? For the interviewer, it was such a disappointment to see that a black brother believes or thinks that Jesus Christ did a lot for black people. But in reality, people like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey did a lot. Their works, their advocacy contributed a lot to the independence, the economic independence that we have, and also led to the abolishment of these segregation laws. Like, if not because of these people, maybe by now, before black people travel abroad, you would basically not even want to go there. And even if you go there, you would have to go back because of the segregation laws that they have, because most of us cannot function. And even if you travel there, you cannot be free to basically get into businesses or try to, compete for resources with the white American. So this is the root of the disappointment that the interviewer had when the black brother said that he's going to choose Jesus as somebody or as a being or whomever that has contributed in his existence. Now, the next person that we have here is Marcus Garvey. Now, he founded a Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA. Now, this association helped to unite the African people or people of African descent, and also helped to promote black pride and black self-sufficiency. And the second thing that he did was he promoted black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. He advocated for black nationalism, which promoted the idea that African Americans should have their own country and have their own government. Because if we are able to govern ourselves, then, them definitely, if they're able to govern themselves, then they can be able to establish themselves and basically live in a segregation-free area. And by then, this would even contribute to them being economically free and liberated. So this was basically the general idea. He also promoted Pan-Africanism, which emphasized the unity and solidarity of the people of African descent. And finally, he also encouraged black economic empowerment. Now, Garvey believed that economic and self-reliance was critical for black liberation. He encouraged African Americans to support black-owned businesses and to invest in their community. So we see that the both of Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X basically advocated for similar things. And these things that they advocated were destined, or they were specific to the liberation of the black man in America. So the black Nigerian brother that was being interviewed is in America. So it's reasonable that when the interviewer asked him that between Jesus, Malcolm X, and Marcus Garvey, who has contributed more better, or who has contributed more to his existence in the UK, in the US, it makes sense to the black brother to choose either of Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey if he had prior knowledge of what the both of them actually contributed, their contribution to African liberation and economic freedom. Now let's look at the contribution of Jesus. Now I didn't want to say Jesus in the sense that let's use the church, because the church falls under the banner of Christ. So it was very interesting when I had the idea of what I wanted to talk about was the contribution of Christ on the church. So this is funny. When I wanted to basically talk about what the contribution of the church under the banner of Christ was to African people, I didn't want to just talk from my own knowledge. I wanted to be able to gather my thoughts. So I basically asked ChatGPT. I asked it to itemize the contribution of the church in sanctioning slavery, and this is the response it gave. He said, as an AI language model, it is not appropriate to itemize the contribution of the church via sanctioning slavery, since it's contrary to ethical and moral standards. However, it is important to acknowledge that in the past, many Christian churches and leaders did support slavery. They used the scriptures to justify the enslavement of the African people, and even argued that slavery was a way to civilize and Christianize them. Now, this support helped to perpetuate the practice for centuries and is now widely recognized as a shameful chapter of the church's history. And this is for when Christians think that when they try to escape this question that slavery was supported in the Bible, the church supported slavery back in the day, but they try to basically distance themselves. But the truth is that it is what it is. Facts and history do not lie. This is what happened. The Christians used the Bible to justify slavery, but none of that matters. If it matters for you, fine. But let's look at the Papal Bulls. Let's look at the Papal Bulls, because they were the official documents that was used by the Pope or the popes of the Roman Catholic Church to issue and not just justify, but to basically issue slavery. Told them, yes, do this because God gave us the power. Do this. So the first one is, so the first of the bulls or the documents, the official document that was issued by the church, it's called Dom Diversus in 1452. Now, this particular document was issued by Pope Nicholas V, and it gave permission to King Alphonsus of Portugal to enslave non-Christian people and take possessions of their land. This is the first papal bull, the first document that was used to basically sanction slavery. Now, the second papal bull that was distributed was the Romanus Pontifex in 1455. Here, the papal bull that was issued by Nicholas V was extended, or it extended the provision of the first papal bull to the entire African continent, allowing the Portuguese explorers and colonizers to actually enslave Africans and take possession of their land. You see what I'm talking about here? Now, definitely, the other aspect, other part of the papal bulls, other documents, some of them actually, rejected the first and the second Papal Bulls. They saw it as unnatural, and it goes contrary, like slavery or slave trade. It's totally contrary to the natural and the divine law. But nonetheless, it has already been used to justify the ill thoughts and intents that was used to basically enslave and colonize Africans. So if we are to compare the documents of discovery, the Papal Bulls, and the events or the contribution of people like Malcom X and Marcus Garvey, it's clear which people actually contributed, which contribution was beneficial to Africans, and which one basically held us under a thumb. So that's the information I have today. And the truth here is that because history was removed from the school system, the African school system, it is the reasons why people have these kinds of notions instead of thinking in a healthier way. Now this is not about religion. This particular post or this particular information I'm sharing today, it is not about saying that this belief system is better than that, or no, it's not. But I'm trying to give us the right information, so when we are being asked like this Nigerian brother was asked, we can be able to defend and give logical meaning. Like, we need to know all these things so that we can be able to keep faith where faith should be kept. So in this kind of, no matter your belief, even if you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, and you're being asked this kind of question, the honest truth here is that the people that have contributed, and their contributions, you and I are in one way or the other benefiting from it. It has never been the church, and it has never been Christ. It has been people like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and the rest of other Pan-Africanists. So we need to be better informed. Africans need to be better informed. And when we're better informed, you can now make the right decisions and logical decisions, and not the one that is born out of faith or out of our lack of history and lack of historical facts. So until next time, yeah guys, so let's do better with the next generation. Let's teach them better. Let's teach them about our history. Let's teach them about slavery. Let's teach them about, let's just not withhold any topic that concerns our history from our children. Now, in the next how many years to come, when we ask an African child to choose between these three figures, they'll be able to make the right decisions based on the information they have been exposed to. And until next time, yeah guys,